Oh. Good morning, Buddha Vida. Welcome to this week's Dharma Talk. And thank you for joining us here at beautiful Bali Rica in Costa Rica and on the internet. I'm not sure what's happening, but I think we're live streaming this morning, which means that it's happening in real time or something. But anyway, we're getting ready to have a little continuing conversation about mindfulness. And the first foundation of mindfulness for the Buddha was mindfulness of body. And for that, we have Pam, who is going to lead us in a yoga meditation to get us into the body. So please give your full attention, be here now. And Pam, I don't know if we can turn this around.
Oh, should I? Okay, I can come over. I was just going to cue it. It's okay.
Okay, very good.
Because it's just going to be
got it figured out. We'll just switch places here as we go along. All right, everybody, get ready, set, go.
First, just find a nice, tall, dignified posture. However you're comfortable, legs crossed, legs in front of you, eyes open, eyes closed, it really doesn't matter. But move flesh out of the way so you can feel where you're sitting. Take a deep breath, settle into the body. And feel the parts of the body that are touching the floor. Take another deep breath, bringing awareness to the body and the parts of the body that are touching the floor. Allow the body to spread and settle. Feel the legs open and the hips open. Notice space between the vertebrae and the spine. So staying seated, start to grow up the spine. Visualize space and length. Notice the breath in the chest and in the back, helping to bring space and awareness. Feel the breath trickling down into the legs and the seat. Feel the breath between the vertebrae of the spine, between the rib cage. And then energizing up through the crown of the head, up into the heavens. So the chin is slightly tucked. Space in the neck. Space along the back of the head and out the crown of the head. Continue nice, long breaths. Feel the breath through the nose. Down the back of the throat, trickling down the shoulders and down into the hands, which are resting in your lap or at your sides. On your next inhale, hold the breath. Take a deep, deep inhale, hold the breath, feel it in the body, feel the chest open, feel the shoulders release away from the ears, and then breathe in a little bit more. Oh, and release, sigh out all of your air. Drop the head Drop the chin to the chest and turn side to side. Look left, look right. Maybe take a circle with the head. In the other direction. Big inhale, lift high. Arms up, overhead, and hands down to your heart. And hopefully we're a little bit more present. Present in the body. Present here with community. A lucky place to be. I feel lucky. Thank you. Thank you, Ruthie, for the honor.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. That was lovely. And since we've been talking about the importance of mindfulness, the very first of the 4 foundations of mindfulness that the Buddha taught is mindfulness of body. And the very first exercise is mindfulness of breathing. And I think everyone here is probably already a meditator. And you know that the first thing that happens when you sit down and you go through this and you relax and you try to focus on your breathing and remain mindful of it is that you can't really hold that focus for very long. Your mind just runs away from you. It's called a monkey mind. So the first thing that happens to you is you get a jolt of truth about how much you think you can control your mind. You find out that it is a monkey. It's swinging from limb to limb and jumping around and carrying on. So now you know that the breath is life, that you don't control it yourself except superficially. You can manipulate it, but you don't have to think about it. It's automatic. Life is breathing you. Life is breathing you. And the place of connection between our inner world and our outer world is through our breath, the breathing in and the breathing out. So it's a very good idea, if we're going to be involved with mindfulness, to start always with a bit of a mindfulness of body, with respect for the fact that we are here thanks to our ability to breathe and to move about with our senses, with the 6 senses. So all of those, if we pay attention to them, we will bring a greater respect for life itself. And it's very important that we recognize as a foundation respect for life itself, without regard for any other such concepts. The other 3 concepts, so you start with the first foundation is mindfulness of the body. The second is the mindfulness of sensations. And this is a double type of sensation. It's actual physical sensation, and it's also mental sensations. So as we're working with the body and we begin to heighten our awareness of feeling, okay, and we focus on the breath, you can add your awareness of your feelings and of sensations. There are 2 methods of mindfulness of breathing. One is one-pointed, and that's mindfulness just of focusing on the breath itself. The other, that's a narrow focus on one object. The other is to simply breathe and open up all your what Buddhists call your sense doors. And without judging, without manipulating, without pushing and pulling, begin to notice where your awareness goes. It may go to a sound, that noise out there, whatever that is, a weed whacker or something. It may go to feeling the breeze. It may go to a really nice scent that comes through the room. It may go to a thought that you have. It may go to an emotion that's arising. Be aware of any of the things that arise and leave them alone. Let them just come, and if you just note them, let them go, and you'll find something else is arising. Note them and let them go. But increase your ability to be aware, increase your ability to hold your attention to wherever you have set it, which is some form of focus. So that's the sensation. The third is mindfulness of mind. And here we get into things like the Four Noble Truths. We get into realizing very simple things we know but don't think about much, which are we have only 3 reactions to any stimulus that happens to us. You're either attracted, or you have aversion, or you're indifferent. You like it, you don't like it, or you don't care. There are no other responses. So now you start observing your mind and your responses. And then as you do that, you begin to say, oh, this brings me pleasure. This doesn't bring me pleasure. This one just is neither one. That which brings me pleasure leads to one of the causes of suffering, which is the possibility of craving. It gets out of control. One of the possibilities of aversion is it leads to ill will, to anger, to pushing people away, to aggression. And the one that you have, which is totally indifferent, can lead to apathy and ignorance and delusion because you're not in control of what you're doing with your mind. So the poisons of craving, ill will, ignorance, and delusion are all contained with your responses to stimuli. Okay, so that's where you start to go with the second foundation of third foundation of mindfulness, right? Am I on that? And the fourth foundation, did I do the third foundation? Was that the third foundation? I lose my own self. That was the second. Mindfulness of mind? No, sensation. Body, sensation, mind. Okay. I'm lost, but that's all right. Okay. Anyway, the fourth foundation is mindfulness of everything. This is mindfulness of mindfulness. And this takes you through everything that we have learned and observed and studied, that we're working with in our personal lives. Each of us has our individual life. We have our own likes, we have our own dislikes, we have our own opinions, concepts, problems, but all of us can maintain the same mindfulness about whatever comes to us. You begin to notice interesting things. You apply mindfulness, for example, to the first noble truth, which is that everyone has suffering. And you think about the fact that the Buddha said, as an example of suffering, as simple dissatisfaction He used two examples. One is of the wagon, which has four wheels. Okay? Which one causes suffering? It's the one that wobbles. That immediately draws your attention. So there's a lesson here in positive and negative. We pay attention to that which doesn't fit the harmonious pattern, the thing that's going wrong. The negative thing is what draws our attention. In early evolution, that's a matter of survival. If you notice something that isn't working right, you better pay attention to it because it could threaten you. We still carry that, but we forget that there are three things, there are three wheels that are working just fine. They're the positive wheels. They're actually doing the work of carrying us forward towards our goals and everything else. So the other example he uses is a three-legged stool with one leg just a tiny bit shorter than the other two. So it wobbles and you are out of balance. And this brings you to studying equanimity, becoming balanced. So one thing kind of leads to another in awareness as we go along. Now, this is the Buddhist mindfulness, which covers a wide range that is very much the science of the mind and also of the heart, because mind and heart are the same word in Buddhism. The two are so closely linked you can't separate them, which this we all know anyway. One of the things you'll be aware of is that we spend a lot more time with attention to thoughts, but we generally act on emotions. We have lots of good thoughts and bad thoughts, and we do pay attention to what we're thinking about. But our feelings rise up sort of without us. And that's where we have to be really mindful of how we're connecting our thoughts to our emotions. From the beginning of our lives, we are taught to pay attention to external information, knowledge. But we don't really do a whole lot about knowledge of the heart, of our emotions. And Buddhism really answers to that. Now, what happens if you're not aware? All kinds of stuff. And so this whole idea that we're aware is to bring us into a present moment, which is the only time we can act without pushing away the past or the future. They're all part of the present moment. But we have to be there in order to perform an action because of it. Because you can't act in the past and you can't act in the future. So you have to connect it. So being aware of your awareness brings about for you a control of your life. You know, I love the song, I think Buddy Rogers sings it, called The Gambler. Know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You know, if you're not aware, you don't know when to hold 'em, you don't know when to fold 'em, you don't know when to walk away, and you don't know when to run. It's really wonderful advice in the 21st century, you know? And all of this has carried all these years that he really studied all this, and he really passed it on to us. Because if you aren't aware, you live in a state of perpetual confusion. You're not sure which way is up, which way is down, which is left, which is right. And even when you feel like you're right on schedule, Have you ever just thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is this the right thing for me to do? So that carries you, of course, into the other foundations, and you keep going. So basically, in several of our recent conversations, there have been wonderful examples of people paying attention. And one of them was Pam, who asked a very good question because she became aware. She said, why is it that in doing my studies, I am told to embrace, for example, I have anger, to embrace the anger, to sit with the anger and take it into my arms and live with it and get to know it. Don't try and repress it. Don't try and push it away. On the other hand, the major teaching of Buddhism is to let go. So which is it? Do I let go or do I take in and hold? Okay, that's a very observant question. We've had a lot of them like that. And of course, the answer is that by taking it in, making friends with it, not running it off and being adversarial, just simply being aware, I am angry. Where is this anger coming from? You just open your awareness. That works much better in terms of it going away. And this brings us to the Buddhist concept of all emotions and thoughts, that which is of the nature to arise is of the nature to subside. So if you don't force your ill feelings, with in this case anger, if you don't push it away and you accept that you are feeling it and you simply sit with it without any sort of ill will towards it, it will subside. You will let go of it without effort. Does that make sense? Okay, so all kinds of interesting things happen when you begin to get to know yourself. Okay, you begin to ask questions like, how much of my power for happiness do I give to other people? How much do I expect other people to give me my happiness? And also, how much do I blame other people for my unhappiness? The Buddha teaches us right off, as do almost all spiritual paths. Happiness can only be found within. You're not going to find it with other people. They're as confused as you are. But if you get to know yourself, was it Aristotle who said the proper study of mankind is man? Somebody said that. And know thy physician, heal thyself. Knowing yourself, being friends with yourself, holding yourself in the highest esteem without being narcissistic, because that's an evidence of insecurity. Just realizing how precious life is and really paying attention, not just to what's out there, but what's in here. And that's where meditation comes in. Now, Mark said he had something apropos, I think, to read, or sort of apropos or whatever. He wanted to read it to us anyway, and we always love to hear what Mark's going to read.
So strangely enough, I've been working on this for a day or so it's not in its complete entirety, but it's like 90% there. And listening to everything that you're talking about, I felt inspired to bring it, to share it with everybody, but I thought it was going to be something we were going to do off. But now I see it actually fits on. Again,
Okay.
Well done. It's a tribute, in a way, to someone who used to attend here at Dharma Talks, someone who attended for about 6-7 months, a friend of mine who came down from Canada and recently went back in February. I'd like to read it to you and then maybe share the context, but as I'm reading it to you, I'm going to just encourage you to hear what Ruthie was saying and what I wrote, because it's the reason I was so lost in what you were saying is because I'm thinking, wow, this is spot on. Anyway, here we go. Drawn to the unknowable. At the end of human expectations, beyond hope that creates dogma, we find the truth.
Hey, dogma.
For many of us, life-altering events, a birth, death, spiritual awakening, are required to lift us from the endless cycles of dispelling doubt.
I'm sorry, read that again?
Yeah, sure. You want me to start from the very beginning?
No, just the
Okay.
last sentence. Got it for there. And then
For many of us, life-altering events, a birth, a death, or spiritual awakening, are required to lift us from the endless cycles of dispelling doubt. Once found, we feel it in every part of our being, and it's easy to remember what we thought we would never learn. What confused us, it would seem, is what to do with what we know. This means that we must have known somewhere in our ancient past that this truth existed in order for us to go looking for it. It means that we made a conscious choice to verify that this truth can exist within the chaotic realm of actions and reactions. That led us to a piece of dust hurling through a primordial void, where we can observe and document every color, line, sound, shape of that truth, to experience how this knowable truth exists in a mind-expanding mosaic. Here, it would seem, is where we establish its veracity. Within these physical proving grounds is a will to survive, a primal need to exist by foraging for strength and warding off being consumed. As our truth endures within this space, it demonstrates itself as an indestructible expression of life. It takes time to conclude our observations. The time it takes to conclude our observations is irrelevant. Being assured of it all is that matters. And the truth that Ruthie was talking about, the truth further reveals itself as a singular expression interconnected to a more remarkable collection of truths. With this, we see how we are on the very edge of not knowing, drawn to an all-encompassing certainty to seek perfection. Every revelation we experience provides more possibilities, which draws us to explore further. It is a primal need to understand and study the nature of origins and the rationality of belief. This drive is what motivates us to endure and helps us to explain why we're here. This is why, when we remember, we see our lives filled with possibility. Yet as we grapple with these conscious expanding experiences that exist within an indescribable vastness of possibilities, we soon learn that our truth is no different than any other truth. It's just expressed differently. At this moment, we smile a relaxed smile, immersed in an understanding of how we got so confused. We are unable to deny the truth of who we are and why we express ourselves the way we do. We remember that it is always in our nature to seek a purer way, because ultimately, that is who we are in our core. We are unable to deny ourselves anymore. For a time, we may even try and share this knowledge with others, for we have experienced the confusion and see how easy it is to forget the importance of that truth. And then another truth emerges without fanfare. It comes suddenly to all the other searchers, predictably to us. It's an awareness to release this need to explore any further. The time has come to slip back into an indescribable, indestructible, all-encompassing truth. We do this confidently, knowing for it is here that we truly belong. For our life is now complete, and we've stepped one closer to the unknowable. That is why at the end of the experience, we smile. Godspeed, Judith.
Yes, Judith was a person who came to our talks, and she passed away last week.
Monday.
Sorry, who was this? Judith, that used to sit here next to me.
No, this was a tribute to Judith.
Wait, did Judith?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a tribute to Judith.
I'll explain more about it later.
Oh.
Well, the world is full of mysteries, and we
It
found
is.
them. And somewhere here I had something. I don't know what I did with it, so I will ignore it. But it's just so important that we listen to the first order of business that the Buddha gave to us. Was wake up. The second one was pay attention. Know thyself. And everything that you think, everything that you say, everything that you do is creating yourself. You've been given the gifts of nature. Your body is so complex that if you really are aware of how your body is, what it consists of, you would not take it from anyone. You didn't give it, and you have no right to take it. This is the basis of nonviolence. It's also the basis of rebirth and the fact of reincarnation, that we go on cycles, which is something you can believe or not believe. I don't know, do we have any people here who are not familiar? There were some new people coming today, but anyone here who doesn't know the very basis of Buddhism? Or who it was, or what it was?
I don't know.
Well, Buddhism is non-theistic. You can treat it as a religion if you wish. It is a religion in the East for many people, but it is not a religion based on beliefs. It's not a religion based on dogma. And one of the good questions that came up was, well, it has principles and precepts. What's the difference? The difference is a dogma is something issued by an authoritarian figure, which is to be held as inviolate. You must believe it. It is an inviolate truth without any change. And if you don't follow it, you can be punished. That's a dogma. You'll be rewarded or punished according to how you act in relation to a belief which has been issued by someone in authority. The Buddha says the authority is you. And you don't belong to any of this until you have tried it out. You must question. So it's more of a philosophy in the West and than in the East, where it is both a philosophy and a religion. Or it can simply be a very, very good way of life. What the Buddha teaches is on two levels. The first is the mundane world that we live in all the time, which is a dualistic world, and you'll hear that word a lot, which is that there are two sides to everything. So you are in a constant state of decision making all the time. What do I eat? What do I wear? What do I think? Where do I go? All these things are all involved in our everyday life. What we work with here is what you might call dualistic intelligence. How do we cope in such a difficult world with all the problems we have in life? So that is dualism. But Christianity, Buddhism, and almost all of the spiritual paths are basically non-dualistic. They are single. They are to one. Now, Christianity is one God and he's external. It's full of dogmas. The Muslims are, there's one Muhammad and he has all the truth, nobody else. And they tend to get very conflicted. Buddhism says we are a process of divine cosmic energy. It is non-human. We manifest from that energy, which is expressed all around us in what we think and seems to be empty, but is not. It's full of life, is in the space. We simply come out of that space and we return to it, which is life and death. So it is a question of being open-minded, willing to say, I don't know, willing to take time to get to understand yourself and why you say and think and do the things you do. And one of the first teachings, in fact, the very first of the Dhammapada, which are the sayings of the Buddha, is that, with our thoughts, we create our lives. Because what we think can then become what we say, and then it becomes what we do. And when we're talking about mindfulness, it's that space between thinking and saying and doing that's the gap we try and get bigger. We pause and reflect before we act on why we think what we think and why we say what we say.
Ruthie,
Mm-hmm.
would you say that introspection is a key to the Buddha philosophy?
Yes, it is.
That it stop and think if you get angry, stop and think
That's what I'm saying.
if you're happy, if
Okay.
you're reacting, stop and think, go inside and then analyze and
Uh-huh.
do what is right.
Yeah.
According to Buddha.
Yeah, it's absolutely
It's-
true.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working with. We're working with our mind, our heart, and our body. And we're working with outlook and insight. And the Buddha says it's totally ridiculous to think that you can be great on the outside and rotten on the inside. So that's not going to work. And if you think you're going to find peace outside of yourself, you're not, because it's pretty confusing out there. So you have to get your own principles and you have to try them out. You have to inquire. You have to be interested in them. My mother had a saying, which all our mothers have sayings, which was very, very Buddhist, even though she had nothing to do with Buddhism. What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say.
Actions are louder than words.
I'm sorry?
Actions are louder than
Are
words.
louder than words.
Grandma said. Same
So
thing.
why are we mindful? Why do we get to know ourselves? To be who we want to be. And most of us, Buddhism is the only religion that totally emphasizes happiness. Because happiness is the end result of coming to know yourself enough and have the integrity and the principles and the ethics to live your best self, that when that happens, anger and compassion really can't sit in the same seat. One can take the place of the other. But at its simplest, think of it this way. You've got positive and you've got negative. That's dualistic. Now, at the first level of Buddhism, you're going to work with that. That level of Buddhism is not rocket science. It's common sense. It's universal. It's truths that hold true for any and all religions, even though they don't want to believe it sometimes. But it works for them as it works for us. On the other hand, there is an element of Buddhism that when you have really, really worked your way through the basics, you come to a space in which it is rocket science. And that is very, very much when you become aware of non-self as part of a single universe. That you are part of the whole. And somewhere in here, I don't know if this would interest you or not, but somewhere here is a saying which is interesting from Albert Einstein. I think it's right here. Is that man is a part of a whole? A human being is part of a whole. Think about that a minute. This is really interesting. This was one of the very first things of Einstein's that I read that totally took me into his world, which I don't understand most of it. But I understood this. He was a very spiritual person. And this just knocked me out. And not long ago, I happened to tune in, because we're talking about mindfulness, to John Kabat-Zinn giving a speech in England. And he's the sort of the father of mindfulness in the U.S. and in the West. And he quoted exactly the same thing. And he said, when I first read this, I fell to the floor. And I thought, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. So here it is in a nutshell. It's very simple, really. A human being is a part of the whole.
A human being is a part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feeling as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness.
An optical delusion of consciousness. We're going to work with that later.
The delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Albert Einstein.
Love it.
Hmm?
Love it.
Well, there it is. We're part of a whole. And anything you do that damages the whole damages the parts, or damages the parts damages the whole. So a big part of what we're talking about is just that. Separation seems to be the number one cause of suffering in people. It seems to be the number one cause of anxiety. It's a cause of loneliness. It's the cause of all kinds of conflicts, that we're different, that we're suffering, and we're going in different directions and we can't come together. And yet the truth of the matter is we're all a part of this one whole. And that's why there's one God if you're a Christian. There's one Muhammad if you are a Muslim. I don't know what you have if you're Jewish, but something. But
God.
they,
God.
okay.
Yep.
But it all is the same thing in different expressions. And I've asked Mark the possibility of the saying, many paths, one Dharma. Since we're talking so much about mindfulness, many paths, it doesn't matter what path you take, there is one Dharma. That's your universe. We're all in this one universe. We're all a part of it. But we're all individuals and we have to all deal with this. And does everybody here know Mark? Mark is a firekeeper for 3 Indian tribes in Canada. This is a highly respected, honorable position. And he works with Vision Quest. And he knows a lot about other things. I strictly have always been within the Christian and then the Buddhist world. But he knows about indigenous peoples and those thoughts. So I've asked him to perhaps give us a talk on that. But what happens if we end all of our talks with metta, loving kindness? This is the sublime place to come from, are called the Brahma Viharas. Loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and above all, equanimity, balance. We talk about the lute and the strings of the lute. Too tight and they snap, and too loose they flop. They have to be tuned. They have to be brought into unity with each other in order to make music. And so we talk about all this, and then we have to go home. We have to practice it in our daily lives. And Natalie, is Natalie here?
Her car, it wasn't working.
Okay, well, Natalie came up with, she won't mind if I tell you, she came up after our last talk, and she said, doing our metta, I just was having a really hard time giving metta to the people who abuse those horses. There are probably 4 of you here who have worked on rescuing some abused horses, one of which at the age of 2 died of starvation. And she said, I could not give my good wishes to the people who did this. So what do you do with that? Because when we say, may we be well, what if you aren't well? What if we say, may no harm come to you, but harm did just come to you? What about living with ease, calm and peaceful, when your life is in turmoil? What about going with the person in conflict and wishing them no ill will at all? How do you cope with that? All right, now here's where you come up against the same thing that Pam was talking about. You sit with it. You acknowledge it. And then you do what Mother Teresa says. You love them anyway. But you go through the process of the anger. You go through the grief of a loss. You go through all of these and you sit in stillness and in silence. And you let it play out while you are simply an observer. And it will rise and it will fall and it will resolve. And then, and really only then, can you give your full truth to your actions. And this certainly isn't easy to do. It's not an easy thing to do. That one wheel that's wobbling is always going to get our attention. And in the case of Natalie and the horses, she asked me what my response would be. And I said, the only thing I can think of is that was one family that abused those horses. How many people can you count who have immediately responded to the rescue? A whole lot. There are probably 4 of you here today who immediately came together and offered everything they had. That's the equanimity. This too shall pass. You sit with it. And you realize that for every negative which grabs the attention, the headlines, it's what's out there in front of your face. Behind that, there are 3 things that are working harmoniously. So you don't even notice them because they're not yelling for your attention. You have to literally give them your attention and balance them. And then, surprise, surprise, you know what the middle way is.
Ruthie,
Okay?
it's not that you're not angry.
Speak up so.
Okay, it's not that you're not angry and disgusted.
Right.
It's that it's done and you have to let it go or it
Mhm.
eats you alive.
Or if you're going to be connected to the suffering, if you're going to be connected to the pain, then you're stuck in suffering, which is
Right.
the first noble truth.
Rather than enjoying the ones that you rescued.
No, that's
but
right.
even more simply, it's not to embrace the anger and fight the anger and fight the wrong. It's to recognize that that it has existed, it has happened, and then free yourself of that moment.
Because you can't do anything about it.
What you can do for the other, in this
Oh,
case, there
you
were
did
4
do.
horses.
You
What-
did do for it.
Right.
Yeah, so you put your energy, instead of driving that energy into repression, suppression, or revulsion, you drive it into
Right.
creative, supportive energy,
That's right.
where it moves in a different direction, thus freeing you of the burden and moving you in the direction of the equanimity that Ruthie's talking about.
But nobody says that you shouldn't feel that animosity.
Agreed.
You're going to feel that conflict.
I can tell you, the day that
Speak up, honey.
the
'Cause
day that they think that he was between a year and 2 year old, the day that horse died,
uh-huh,
I could not go there
uh-huh.
because I had so much anger. I just wanted to kill the guy.
Yeah.
But then later, I realized that both of them, they're just totally ignorant.
They were what?
They're ignorant. They have no idea how to care for a horse, what they should eat. They thought they could just put them in the pasture and they'd be okay. And they were ignorant. And how could they not observe that their ribs were showing? It's still, they're really ignorant. But it's hard. I would have a hard time even now forgiving these people.
Well, you don't need to have
But I
a
know-
hard time because you've already dealt with it.
But exactly.
You've observed it.
Right.
You've analyzed it.
But I also know that every day or any time they think about a horse, they both know that they caused the death of the one that.
But that's not your problem.
No, it's not I know, but that gives me
The ability to
that
cope.
to deal with it because I know that
Yeah. But one of the really difficult things is that we cannot change other people by force. You can't force them to acknowledge even their ignorance.
Yeah.
And they are angry with the people who came and took their horses. Even though one dropped dead at the age of 2 right in front of their eyes, starved. And the others were covered with ticks and unable to get water and on the brink of death. They still didn't see it. So wake up. Wake up.
Yeah. Natalie was the hero.
Natalie, but you were,
I
and
mean, yeah, I was
Barbara
involved,
was.
and
I
I
mean,
was the one.
I
that
won't
alerted
name
her,
everybody here, but
I could not go there. She went there.
but think of
And she
Lolo,
dealt with
who's
it. She
also
sat there with that horse instead in her lap with it.
Mhm. So, as I say, there was an immediate, positive, compassionate response. There also were the vets. There were people who Barb knows. Barb has opened her home, and her
Well, you were
since
big.
you
You
brought
were-
it out.
You were wonderful. You're the one who said, "What about Barbara?" Because
Yeah,
we
I
were
said,
trying to
"Call
figure out where
Barbara.
these horses go.
Call Barbara.
I
She
know,
has
and it was-
horses.
So thank you, Barbara.
So,
Can I?
but everybody.
I love 'em. I
So
love 'em.
that's
I've got all
that's the
three.
middle. That's the middle way. Somehow is
Can I-
what I'm trying to say.
Can I add
But the
something
key
to
to
that?
what you're
Oh
saying,
yeah, Mark
the
wants to add
key of
something.
what you're saying then,
Oh.
though, from what I'm hearing is, if we can put ourselves in that way to be mindful and think about it, then we won't go to the negative side
That's
of
right.
retribution.
That's right.
Yeah.
It becomes
There-
positive. Yeah.
There and to add to
Yeah.
add to that
Mhm.
Yeah.
is we're talking about the initial anger and what Ruthie was bringing up. She said, never does it say anywhere that you don't feel the anger or acknowledge it. The anger that, and I'm new to this story. I'm hearing it for the first time,
Mhm.
but from what I'm presuming,
Mhm.
the anger that Natalie felt created a response, and she immediately moved that. She shared her disappointment with what she experienced and sent it out to other people who also felt the remorse, the disgust, and the frustration, and they went out and reacted. This is the positive element of our anger, our frustration, and our need to create or to change something in an initial moment. However, hanging on to that moment and replaying it and refeeling the emotions and driving our anger towards those
Towards
people
people.
is taking us completely out of the situation, and now we are creating anger in the response.
Mhm.
And what I feel the Buddha is saying is, yes, feel it, do it, make a difference, and then let it go.
Yeah.
Redirect that energy into something that is supportive and life-giving and honors, in this particular case, in this story as I understand it, the two other horses, in which community comes together and supports the whole situation.
Yeah.
3 horses.
Yeah.
So 3 horses, community supports it. And then the teaching would go as far to say is that we don't have to do anything for these 2 people that were mistreating the horses. Through the actions of others, they will witness their own mistakes.
Mhm.
Whether they witness it in our lifetime or not, but they will witness the error.
Well,
We
and
can't-
that's when Shakespeare about his mother said, "Leave her to heaven." He sought revenge for the murder of his father, but when it finally came down to
I
it,
mean Hamlet, not Shakespeare. Hamlet.
Shakespeare wrote Hamlet.
Yeah, right.
So, but it was Hamlet.
Yeah.
But he said, "Leave her to heaven." In other words, there comes a point at which you've done what you needed to do.
Yeah.
Let it go. Let it go. I do have one minor question, which is a whole nother topic in a way within the mindfulness frame, which is everyone here, have you ever given much thought to the difference between pity, empathy, and compassion? They all speak to an emotional response to an aversive situation. But if you pity something or someone, you are in a way feeling superior to that person. Because, oh my gosh, I really pity him. Thank God it's not me. You know, I would never let that happen. Okay. Empathy. You feel what that person is feeling. It's a sympathy and empathy. You sympathize without pity. That's the 4th step. Actually. So you sympathize. You know how they feel, and you actually can feel it for yourself. there are a whole series of meditations called Tonglen, which deal with that. But empathy is not an active verb. Compassion, on the other hand, which is what the Buddha is trying to say, is all encompassing in time, space, and everything else. It's for the suffering of the horses, for the suffering of the people who allowed this to happen, for the suffering of our own anger, for the suffering of the world, which is in suffering. And it does not blame, and it really does not ascribe our ego to it. It is for the entire condition. And the last week, we did Mother Teresa, and someone of you, I don't know who it was, Susan maybe, read it out to us. And to end for today, before we get into other conversation that Mark will lead, I want to read it again. And I would advise everyone to keep it somewhere. It's a beautiful expression of what the Buddha is trying to teach. Mother Teresa is teaching the same thing. This is compassion. And so Mark can read, because I can hardly talk with my stuff there. I think that's Mother Teresa.
It is.
And you should you really should think about this when you find yourself negatively responding to things.
Mother Teresa. People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway.
That just about says it all, doesn't it? So anyway, comments, please. We could go on this topic a long time.
Yeah, we're close to meta too.
Oh, we are. Okay. Anybody want to say anything more? Shall we then turn to meta?
Yes.
Let me clear my throat again. I'm sorry, guys. Allergies to mold, dogs, cats, cruelty, all these things. Here we go. Okay, new people here have never done it before?
One person.
Okay, I'm going to bring up a person, and I'm going to say a phrase. I want you to think of that person and repeat the phrase within yourself. This is moving from being part, starting with yourself. We are a part of a whole, like so many segments of an orange. That whole is what we're moving towards in terms of expanding. Okay? And this is loving kindness. One of the four universal, doesn't matter what you think, what your opinions are. If you make as your dwelling these places as your home base, you're going to be okay. So, ding me, darling. We always begin with ourselves. This is not selfish. This is the recognition that we cannot give from an empty cup, and we want to radiate from the inside out rather than expecting the outside to radiate totally within. So to yourself, say, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, that's equanimity, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. Take a deep breath, relax. Bring to mind someone you really, really love with all your heart. Look at them, smile to them, and say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Smile again, take a deep breath, and move to a neutral person. This is someone perhaps who waits on you frequently and you're friendly, but you don't even know their name or their families or anything much about them, but you like them. Or it could be a neighbor that you pass by on the road walking his or her dog, and you wave at them and smile and you go on, but you're not really friends at all. And to this neutral person, if you don't know his or her name, address them as friend. Dear friend, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And now you let them go and you bring to mind another distance out, a person with whom you are in conflict. Maybe you don't like them. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe it's an old grudge. Maybe it's something that just happened. A misunderstanding, whatever. But you look at them and without any sense of malice, say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Breathe in a release with the exhale and the inhale. Relax, let go. And now we place our hands over our hearts. Symbolically, this is the only place spacious enough to hold all sentient beings. 7 to 8 billion on our little planet. Who knows how many out there in worlds we don't know anything about. But into this phantasmagoria of humanity. Breathe in a sense of being a part of the universe and say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. Now bring your awareness to how these expressions of goodwill, unconditional friendliness, unconditional love make you feel. You will have a response in your body, in your emotions, even in your mind and thoughts. Stay with that as long as you wish. And then release your hands. Open your eyes if they're closed. Place your palms together, and we'll close with this, which comes from the Unitarian Church. Go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently. Loving mightily. And bowing to the mysteries. Thank you all very much for being here. We'll see you again next week. I hope we didn't run too much overtime for your computer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It is, it's so good to have Sandy back.